Welcome. I'm so incredibly glad you're joining us for today's deep dive because we're going to be talking about pretty universal frustration.
Oh, definitely. We've all been there.
Right. It's a feeling I know I've experienced, and I'm willing to bet you have too. It's that feeling of being completely stuck in a rut.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You are out there, you're grinding away, and you're desperately trying to get more out of life.
Yeah.
You want more time in your day, maybe more success in your career, more financial security in your bank account.
Standard goals, really.
Exactly. And you are putting in the effort, you're reading the books, doing
Yeah.
the work, but it feels like you are just continuously hitting a...
Hitting a brick wall. It is exhausting.
It really is. But what if the very act of trying so incredibly hard to get those things is the exact mechanism blocking them from coming to you?
It is a completely counterintuitive concept, especially in a modern culture that, glorifies the relentless hustle.
Right? The whole grind mindset.
Yeah, precisely. We spend so much of our adult lives operating under this assumption that accumulation is the ultimate goal. The prevailing wisdom tells us we need to grab and fiercely hold onto resources, onto our time and our energy. But the material we are exploring today flips that entire paradigm upside down.
It really does. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack some deeply fascinating excerpts from Bob Proctor's The Vacuum Law of Prosperity and Spiritual Giving.
It's a powerful text.
Very powerful.
Hmm.
And the primary goal here is to explore a perspective-shifting approach to personal growth. The core premise is that if you actually want to get what you desire out of life, you first have to completely overhaul your relationship with giving.
You essentially have to empty your space first.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with a rather bold claim Proctor makes right at the beginning. He asserts that any program of personal development is incomplete if it does not have a spiritual foundation.
That's a huge point.
Yeah, and before we go any further, what exactly does he mean by a spiritual foundation? Because for a lot of people, that word immediately brings up rigid religious dogma, which might alienate an audience looking for practical growth strategies.
That distinction is crucial. In the context of Proctor's work and the broader New Thought movement he draws from, spiritual does not equate to specific religious theology.
Okay, so it's not about a specific church or belief system.
Not at all. He is talking about universal laws, energy dynamics, and the fundamental mindset operating just below the surface of our conscious thoughts.
Got it.
A spiritual foundation, in this sense, is an understanding that we are dealing with forces like intention, resonance, and energetic circulation. Proctor points out that in our state of limited understanding, we create a massive mental rut for ourselves.
The rut we were just talking about.
Exactly. We reason that we have to acquire things first. We have to secure our own wealth, our own time, or our own energy before we can possibly afford to give any of it away to others.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because that mental rut sounds suspiciously like basic human survival instinct.
It definitely does.
I mean, if I am listening to this and I am struggling to pay rent or just trying to find an hour of free time in my week, focusing on getting resources seems like the only logical first step. Why is the text framing the desire to get as a problem?
What's fascinating here is how the text contrasts the fundamental nature of giving versus getting. Giving is actually described as the first fundamental law of life.
The first law of all creation, right?
Yes, exactly. The attitude of getting, on the other hand, is described by Proctor as the law of life in a congested state. It represents repressed action.
Congested is such a specific word choice.
It is. Think about the physical and psychological implications of the word congested. As long as getting dominates a mind, that mind is quite literally in a paralyzed condition. It is acting in direct opposition to the fundamental law of creation.
So it's like a blockage.
Precisely.
Yeah.
When you are entirely focused on getting, you are operating from a profound scarcity mindset. You are signaling to your own brain and to the world around you that there is simply not enough. Your focus narrows, your anxiety spikes, and you become clenched tight.
Clenched tight is a very visceral way to visualize it. You can almost feel the physiological tension in that description. If you are clenched, nothing can leave your hands, but nothing new can be placed into them either.
That is exactly the dynamic. Proctor illustrates this beautifully by referencing a mentor of his, a man named Leland Bell Vanderwall.
Right.
This mentor taught Proctor a concept very early in his career called the law of circulation. He told him, you must willingly give and graciously receive. And he used this really powerful metaphor. He said, you have to stop acting like a vault and start acting like a terminal.
A vault versus a terminal. Oh, I love that. Breaking that down, a vault is a closed system. Its entire purpose is to hoard things, to lock them away in the dark where they just stagnate.
Nothing moves.
Right, nothing moves. Entropy increases. But a terminal, however, is a point of transit. It is an open system that is designed for flow.
That is the exact systemic parallel the text is drawing. You and I are here to utilize our creative faculties. Energy is forever moving. It has to circulate.
Can't just sit there.
Exactly. If you act like a vault, you block that circulation. You become that congested, paralyzed entity. But if you act like a terminal, you allow the energy to pass through you. And that could be money, ideas, goodwill, anything, really.
And the beautiful paradox of being a terminal is that for energy to pass through you, fresh energy must constantly be arriving at your doorstep.
It's a continuous loop.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text introduces a mechanism for this called the vacuum law of prosperity.
This is where the practical application really starts.
Yes. The premise is that to receive the good you desire, you have to actively create a space for it. The source uses a very grounded physical analogy to explain this rather abstract law.
The chair analogy.
Exactly. Imagine the chair you are sitting in right now. You physically cannot put anything new in that chair until you get rid of the person or the object that is currently occupying it. Two objects cannot occupy the same space.
It is a fundamental law of physics applied directly to psychological and energetic realities. Nature truly abhors a vacuum.
It hates empty space.
It does. If you create an empty space, the universe will immediately rush in to fill it. But to create that space for the good that you desire, you must give something up first. You have to let go of the old before you can receive the new.
I have to push back a bit on behalf of the listener who is currently looking at their life and thinking, I don't have a vacuum.
Oh, I hear this all the time.
Right. Because my calendar is double booked, my inbox is overflowing, and my brain is completely overwhelmed. I am at absolute maximum capacity. Telling someone who is overwhelmed that they need to create space feels like adding another chore to their to-do list.
The text actually addresses that exact sense of overwhelm. Your life is completely full right now, but what is it full of?
That's the real question.
You might argue that your life is full of obligations you resent. Projects that are going absolutely nowhere, clutter in your home, or just hours of wasted time doom scrolling on your phone.
Guilty of that last one.
We all are. But the harsh reality the text presents is that this is exactly how you are currently choosing to use your space. That wasted time or unwanted clutter is the object sitting in your chair.
Wow.
It is a direct reflection of what you've been giving your attention and energy to.
That reframes the entire concept of overwhelm. The clutter, the toxic relationships, the dead-end commitments, those aren't just annoyances. They're actively acting as physical and energetic blockades.
They are the blockade.
As long as that stuff is occupying the chair, the new opportunities we are begging for simply have nowhere to land. We have to be the ones to actively evict the old occupants.
And clearing that chair requires a very specific cognitive state. It requires a radical shift from frantic effort to genuine openness. The text notes that as you activate ideas in your mind and send out a charge of energy, your brain takes on an equal amount of energy of a like nature.
It's like attracts like.
Exactly. If you are frantic, straining, and stressed about clearing space, you are just inviting more frantic, stressful energy back in. To allow a positive exchange to happen, the source emphasizes that we must be relaxed.
That brings up Raymond Hollywell, whom Proctor references in the text.
Yes.
Hollywell pointed out that when we relax from strain, the law actually has a chance to reply to our desires and things begin to change. Straining, forcing outcomes, and remaining completely uptight actively blocks the very things we are trying to attract.
It's like trying to catch a butterfly by swatting at it.
Right. And I see how this makes sense for trivial things. The text mentions wanting a specific book or an invitation or hoping to bump into an old friend. You send out the thought, you drop the strain, you completely forget about it, and then suddenly the book is handed to you. It happens all the time.
It does.
But let's scale this up. Does the text provide any evidence that relaxing works in high-stakes, real-world scenarios? Because dropping the strain when millions of dollars are on the line seems incredibly irresponsible to most people.
It does, and it uses a rather extraordinary anecdote to illustrate the power of dropping that strain. The source details a night when Proctor was sitting in a restaurant with his wife and his business partners, Jerry, Robert, and Sandy.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right. And a woman rushes over to their table, incredibly excited, and pulls a copy of a famous personal development DVD, The Secret, out of her purse. She then waves her partner over. This couple turns out to be the chairman and CEO, along with the president and chief operating officer of a massive development company called World Moon Resorts.
That is wild. And their entire brand concept was based on the moon, a symbol everyone on Earth can look up and see. But they weren't just dreamers. They were deep in the trenches of a massive corporate undertaking.
Precisely. They told Proctor their story. They had been working on this colossal resort project for 10 straight
A
years.
decade.
A decade of relentless grinding, spending millions of dollars, navigating incredibly complex international business hurdles. And they had hit a massive wall. They were exhausted, depleted, and frankly, ready to completely give up. But it was in that exact moment of giving up that they finally stopped straining.
Because they just couldn't force it anymore,
The sheer exhaustion forced them to relax their grip on the project.
which triggers a massive cognitive shift. When you are in a high-stakes environment, grinding away for years, you are in chronic fight-or-flight mode. You have complete tunnel vision. You are obsessing over every obstacle, which creates a confirmation bias for failure.
Absolutely.
The moment they let go of that intense strain, their reticular activating system, the filter in their brain, was suddenly open to new inputs.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the exact mechanism of the vacuum law at work on a macroeconomic scale. That forced relaxation created a mental and emotional vacuum.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Right. So into that newly created space came a new piece of inspiration, in this case, someone handing them that DDD. Because they were finally in a relaxed, open state, they absorbed the material differently. It fired them up, completely shifted their energetic output, and got them back on track.
Incredible.
They went from being ready to quit to telling Proctor about their active plans to build a 60,000 condo development in Abu Dhabi.
The contrast is just staggering. 10 years of forcing and straining led to a brick wall. A moment of creating a vacuum through relaxation led to a multi-billion-dollar project moving forward.
It is a perfect real-world example.
And the interaction at the restaurant didn't just end with a nice story. It actually became a live demonstration of the law of circulation.
It did. The executives gave Proctor their business cards, calling it his ticket to the moon. The CEO even went out to his car to retrieve a DVD detailing the project to give to Proctor. Proctor watched it, was blown away by the vision, and immediately felt the urge to circulate that positive energy back. He boxed up his entire Science of Getting Rich program in a briefcase and sent it to their hotel. They received it the very next day, right before they all had dinner together, before the executives flew out to the UAE.
That is the terminal at work right there. Continually putting out value and continually receiving value.
Exactly. It's a continuous flow.
That is a brilliant example, but it also highlights the exact point where a lot of people check out of this philosophy. A listener might hear that and think, sure, it is easy to circulate energy when you are a high-level executive handing out investment DVDs, or a successful author shipping off briefcases full of expensive educational programs.
Because they already have abundance.
Right. What happens when someone is completely depleted? If I am broke, exhausted, and feeling like I have absolutely nothing left to give, how does Proctor justify asking empty people to pour from an empty cup?
That is the ultimate test of this philosophy. The source is uncompromising on this point. You always have something to give, because you give what you currently possess. Giving is not restricted to financial capital.
So it's not just about money.
Not at all. You can give your time. You can give your focused attention. You can give your loyalty or your knowledge. The text leans heavily on a principle from Wallace Wattles' work, which Proctor studied deeply. It's the concept of leaving everyone with the impression of increase.
The impression of increase, meaning ensuring that every person you interact with feels slightly better, more capable, or more valued after having crossed paths with you.
Yes, precisely that.
That form of giving costs absolutely $0, but it requires a high degree of intentional energy.
And that intentional energy is the actual currency of the universe. When you pass that genuine good feeling through your own terminal to reach someone else, you are simultaneously experiencing that positive state yourself. The giving and the receiving are inextricably linked.
You cannot separate them.
You really can't. But the sequence matters. You must give before you can receive. And perhaps the most critical nuance Proctor introduces here is that the physical manifestation of the gift is secondary. It is the thought and the intent behind the gift that dictates the return.
I want to explore how the amount or the material value of a gift factors into this, because the text shares a rather humorous story about the famous evangelist Billy Graham that perfectly illustrates the discrepancy between physical action and mental intent.
That's a great story.
It takes place during his very early days, a period when he and his wife were genuinely struggling financially. We're talking about an era where $100 was a substantial amount of money, enough to cover significant living expenses.
Right, a major financial hit for them.
The story goes that Graham is attending a church service. The collection plate comes around, and he drops a folded bill into it. Sometime later, the realization hits him, and he begins complaining to his wife. He explains that he thought he was putting a $20 bill into the plate, but he had accidentally dropped in a $100 bill. He is incredibly distressed about the financial loss.
Understandably so, from a purely practical standpoint.
His wife's response is the absolute perfect punchline, while also delivering a profound philosophical lesson. She looks at her distressed husband and says, "Isn't that too bad? You're only going to get the good back for putting 20 out."
This raises an important question about how we view our transactions with the world around us. We tend to think the universe operates like an accountant, keeping a strict ledger of our physical sacrifices.
Just tracking the dollars and cents.
Exactly, but human mathematics is an artificial construct. The laws of nature respond exclusively to energy, resonance, and intent. When Billy Graham dropped that bill, his internal energetic release, his actual intention of giving, was calibrated strictly to $20. He was psychologically clinging to the other 80.
The cognitive dissonance there is fascinating. His physical hand created a $100 vacuum in his wallet, but his mind only created a $20 vacuum in his consciousness. Because he was complaining and regretting the extra $80, he was actually generating an energy of lack and resentment.
Exactly that. The source emphasizes that the thinking controls everything. You will only receive an energetic match to the intention you genuinely put out into the world. If you volunteer 3 hours of your time to help a friend, but the entire time you are silently fuming about how much of a burden they are and how you'd rather be doing anything else, you are not actually giving them the gift of support.
You're giving them the energy of resentment. And according to the vacuum law, if resentment is what you are pushing out through your terminal, resentment is exactly what the universe is going to circulate back to you to fill that space. This completely redefines the concept of generosity.
It forces you to examine the strings attached to every interaction.
You have to willingly give, as Leland Bell Vanderwall advised. Willingly giving is an expression of faith and an understanding of these systemic laws.
It shifts personal development from a strategic game of acquisition to an ongoing practice of circulation. The basic law behind receiving is giving. The text describes the return as pressed down and running over. The implication is that you never actually have to worry about the logistics of what you are going to receive, because the receiving is strictly governed by the law. Your only job is to manage your terminal.
Keep the flow going.
To ensure you are consistently giving the best of what you have with the purest intent and creating the necessary space for the return.
So what does this all mean? Let's distill these concepts down so you can actually implement them in your daily life. First, we have to recognize that the obsession with getting is a psychological trap. Operating from a scarcity mindset leaves you congested and paralyzed. You have to function as a terminal, not a vault.
That's step one.
Second, the vacuum law of prosperity dictates that you cannot attract anything new until you boldly clear out the old. You have to empty the chair, whether that means clearing physical clutter, dropping dead-end projects, or letting go of outdated beliefs.
You have to make the space.
Third, you cannot force the universe's hand. Straining and panicking actively blocks your desires. Relaxation, like the executives at Moon Resorts discovered, opens your mind to the solutions that are already waiting for you. And finally, your intent is the ultimate currency. Whether you are giving your time, your knowledge, or your money, the universe matches the exact energy of your internal thought, not the superficial physical amount.
The actionable steps derived from this text are incredibly clear, though they require a profound level of self-honesty to execute.
They really do. So here is a challenge for you listening right now. Take a ruthless, objective look at your life today. Look at your calendar, examine your daily habits, assess the physical environments you spend time in, and analyze your recurring mental loops. What is currently occupying your chair?
What is taking up the space?
What useless, draining, or outdated things are taking up the precious real estate in your life? More importantly, what can you willingly and graciously give away or let go of today to create a deliberate vacuum for the good you are actually seeking? Because the reality is, your life is already perfectly full. You just have to decide if you are satisfied with what is filling it.
And I will leave you with this final thought to mull over as you analyze your own spaces. If nature truly abhors a vacuum, and if our current lives are already perfectly full reflections of the exact energetic intent we've been broadcasting, what hidden, perhaps negative gifts are we constantly putting out that are keeping our current congested reality perfectly locked in place? What if our biggest obstacle isn't that the universe is denying us the success, time, or resources we desperately want, but rather that we are simply too completely full of our own accumulated waste to receive anything new?